Former President Trump and Republicans running down ballot, well, they're wasting no time going after Vice President Kamala Harris. Pennsylvania Senate candidate David McCormick has this ad right now on the airwaves.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition.
I want to bring in our political panel, Kadia Goba and Nancy Cook. Kadia is political reporter for Semafor. Nancy is senior national political correspondent for Bloomberg News. Great to see you both. I want to put this question to you. Who do you think now in this presidential race is the incumbent? Because during the primaries, Trump ran as a challenger and an incumbent. At the convention in Milwaukee, we all heard it, this glossy rendering of the incumbency of President Trump. Is Kamala Harris the incumbent or is Trump the incumbent? Nancy?
Well, that's a great question. I think that what has happened since Sunday when Biden dropped out of the race is that it's really flipped the script on the Trump campaign. And so now Trump seems more like the incumbent. Also, Trump seems like the older candidate. Right. You know, he was the one that has been president and served in 4 years. And you've sort of seen his campaign really struggle in the last few days to deal with this new reality, come up with the fact that he's basically the incumbent, but also trying to figure out the best attack on Harris.
And Kadia, the reason I asked that question is that David McCormick does what you do when you're trying to create a new impression of a challenger, someone who's not really well known. Not going after Kamala Harris's present, meaning with the Biden agenda, but her past as a radical leftist or something like that. That tells me, at least in Pennsylvania, David McCormick says, no, Kamala Harris is the challenger, and we've got to figure out a way to redefine that challenger.
I think to Nancy's point, when you think about incumbency, you think about, you know, the old guard or something that's stayed, and she is bringing this vibrant energy to the Democratic Party. So it's kind of propelling her, which is interesting because I would say, like, a few days ago, that was Donald Trump, especially after the shooting. We saw this burst of energy coming from the Republican Party. And like you said, things have now switched, and we see, even though she was a vice president, this new energy coming from her supporters and her.
Because the simple truth is, incumbency is a title, but it's also a state of mind. How voters perceive someone, how do they come to them? And look, right now, look at calendar year 2024. In democracies worldwide, incumbency is a very big drag. Check with the Tories in Britain. Check with Narendra Modi in India. Check with Emmanuel Macron in France. Good luck with the Olympics, by the way. So incumbency is just really bad. So trying to get out of this incumbency thing, to me, seems like a not insignificant part of the next 100 days.
Absolutely. And we've just seen so much enthusiasm for Harris's candidacy, as Kadia was saying, in the first few days. You know, she's raised over $100 million. I think she's really exciting suburban women, for instance, who have really turned away from the Republicans. Black voters are excited. I talked with, you know, some political strategists today. The whole electoral map is changing. Democrats think Georgia, for instance, could be back in play, whereas the Republicans thought they had that locked up. So it's really just a whole new race, and I think that we're seeing, you know, a ton of momentum and enthusiasm behind Harris, and the Trump campaign, you know, struggling to deal with that.
Kadia, talk to me about this thing that Republicans, we just heard Richard Hudson on our air, chairman of the NRCC, National Republican Congressional Campaign Committee, telling members, focus on the issue, stop talking about DEI, stop saying that, using that coded language. What have we seen in the last 48 hours on that front?
Oh, well, the exact opposite. We even saw Speaker Johnson urging his members not to talk about anything related to race or sexism. But, you know, I mean, I feel like Republicans can't help themselves. We saw Tim Burchett talk about her being a DEI candidate. I've been since asking people, am I a DEI reporter? What does that mean? Or Glenn Grothman saying something like, oh, well, the campaign or the party had to coalesce around her because of her racial background. So, yeah, it would behoove them to stay the course. I did some reporting similar to, you know, basically black members of Congress, especially women, are saying that they're going to have her back. She's not even going to have to fight that battle, which I think is interesting also. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I think it's not popular now these days to use that sort of rhetoric.
Well, whether it's popular or not, it's acceptable in some quadrants of the Trump coalition. No question about that. But to your point, Nancy, in battleground states, where did Biden win the election in 2020? In the suburbs and the exurbs. Not so popular there. this DEI language.
Absolutely. And what we have seen is that, the Trump campaign was really going after Biden on things like inflation and immigration. And, those messages, they're still sort of throwing the spaghetti at the wall on those things. And those are still vulnerabilities for Democrats. But what we're seeing is it's getting so muddied with this DEI talk or, trying to paint Harris as a San Francisco liberal or as someone more liberal than Biden. There's just like a raft of messages that they're trying out, and they haven't really settled on one. And what I think they run the risk of really alienating swing voters, suburban women, young people, Hispanics, with these messages that have sort of subtle racist and sexist undertones.
Kadia, what do you think the stakes are for the running mate choice for Kamala Harris?
I mean, I think it's a big opportunity for her to, quell some of the talk about whether or not she can handle it. She'll probably, it'll be interesting who she picks, right? Will she focus on a Kelly who,
Mark Kelly, senator from Arizona.
Senator Mark Kelly, although Arizona is trending blue, right? It'd be nice to, grab.
And someone who was a critic of immigration policies in his 2022 re-election campaign.
Also, I mean, if that could contribute to helping the Senate, push the Democratic member for the Senate, that would be also very helpful. So I think there's a lot at stake in terms of who she picks and what that means and how much it energizes or captures a group that she hasn't already energized.
Or picks up a battleground state. Kadia Goba, Nancy Cook, always great to see you. Thanks so very much.